This program is presented by Hunter's Fund, formed in memory of Hunter Watson, a young entrepreneur who died at age 20 as a passenger in a distracted driving accident. Hunter's Fund seeks to support young people with promising ideas and to raise awareness of the dangers of distracted driving.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Yes Series podcast, and I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Today joining us is the talented musician, Jackson Hirsch, aka Rence. Jackson, how are you doing today?
I'm lovely. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Of course. So Jackson is a musician from the Seattle area with a remarkable story of chasing his dreams and signing with Epic Studios. I read that you started playing piano at age 3. I'm just curious.
Violin.
Violin. Yes, violin at age 3. That's such an early age to get into it. Where did that musical influence come from?
There was not really any music in my family, or music players in my family. That being said, my dad did play the violin when he was young, but it wasn't something he maintained, later on. He went into a totally different professional career. And so my entry point into music was just because I loved it. I used to think that my parents were like, "Oh, you need to play the violin, and do something with your time." But actually, I found out later it was me who asked to play the violin because I was at a school recital or something, and I saw someone playing the violin, and I was like, "I want to do that," and that was the beginning. And then from there, every further step I've taken in music always comes back to me just being such a fan of music. Eventually, the reason I decided to become an artist, or at least a large part of it, was to give people that same feeling that my favorite artist had given me.
You got an early start with this, but I know that the grant from Hunter's Fund came at a very pivotal time for you. Could you kind of lead us up to that?
It really did come at a pivotal time. Let's backtrack a little. I'd been in Seattle where was in middle school and high school, and I had been really interested in music, but I didn't necessarily want to commit to it yet. It still felt a little premature. I definitely thought I was decent at it. I was not great at it by any stretch of the imagination. I definitely have always had a really firm work ethic. So I knew that I could be great at it if I wanted to be, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to be. I had a lot of interests, whether that was in academia or following a different career path, playing sports all year, maintaining a social life, all these things. I was always working part-time at the time as well. So my time was really pulled in a lot of different directions, but music was always something I was very interested in. And then I had to make a decision. I had applied to a few different schools to attend after high school, and I had to decide whether to go to a number of schools, which I was really grateful to be admitted to, but I had been admitted just as a general undeclared major, not with a focus in the arts or in music or anything related, or to go to NYU and be in the arts program. And I just took the leap. I have always loved New York. My dad is from the New York area, so it's always, carried such fond memories within me. So I took the leap and went there. And once I got there, I found a community of artists taking themselves seriously that showed me that I could do the same thing. And I promise this is all related. So I was in New York basically creating with what resources I had at the time, right? Which was just the laptop that I brought from high school and a little interface, which I had been using in high school as well and in the summer before college. Before college. And I as I started to work harder and I was in some music adjacent classes, I started learning more about what I didn't know, which I didn't have up until that point. I pretty much was doing what I could with what I knew. And then I started to benefit from the knowledge of the school and of the teachers and the resources. And I started to realize what I needed to get me to the next level. A really sad, I think, reality for musicians, especially, but all sorts of art forms, is not to mention that it's really hard to find your way to a record label or a publisher or somebody that will pay you to do this. But that's later down the line. It's early if you're really lucky, right? But it doesn't make sense for a label to invest in someone that needs basic gear to see whether this is something that they can really excel at. And I feel like that's where Hunter's Fund came in for me, right? I was working pretty much full-time and going to school full-time in New York to try and support my music career. And I could see the literal pieces of gear on the internet that were just out of my reach, right? And I knew it wasn't like, oh, I just want to buy this for fun. It was like, I know what I can get out of this if I can make my way to it. And right around that same time, one of my managers, Mike Ryan, who went to Syracuse, mentioned Hunter's Fund and suggested that I apply. So of course I did my research, found out what an amazing thing this is, and applied. And honestly, didn't necessarily expect to be considered, but I'm so grateful that I was, and awarded the grant. It truly changed the trajectory of my life. And from there, the money I got from the fund went straight towards gear that I needed, which produced the songs that I created, which got me signed to the record label where I'm currently signed and continue to put out music with. So you can definitely see the cause and effect.
Yeah, Steve Jobs has a quote where it says you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And you can see that clear as day with you in your story. And one of the things I didn't want to overlook was you talked about taking that leap where you could have gone to the more traditional school, general undeclared, and followed that route. But instead, you took that leap and you went all in on yourself and with music. What kind of was the tipping point for you that pushed you over the edge of taking that chance? Was it the fear of regret, or what was it for you?
It's a good question. Honestly, I don't know that it was the fear of regret at the time. I genuinely think it was the people in my life that believed in me, um, namely my parents, but a huge part of that was also my high school music teacher Jill Wangsgard. She another person that completely changed the trajectory of my life. I didn't apply to the high school and middle school I was at because of their music program, but I truly lucked out. Um, she, having been a signed artist, musician in a touring band, toured the world being a musician, was able to give me so much information and insight into what a life like that might be for me. And she was such a guiding hand in that. And by the end of senior year, in high school, you've completed most of, at least in my school, you've completed most of your requirements if you've been on top of things. So you have a little more freedom to design your schedule. And so I ended up creating independent studies, one with my music teacher where the two of us would just make music together, another with a student that was especially interested in film where I would make music videos for the songs that I made with the teacher. So it was the people around me that showed me that this was possible. And I remember thinking about that decision because I always really did want to go to a more traditional school with a big sports program and a true to name campus, right? But I felt the opportunity that New York provided, and it was also a great place to go if I found out I didn't want to do music, because city of opportunity, I'm sure I would have found my way to other things had this not been the thing, but it turned out to be.
Moving forwards, you received the grant, and then where do you go from there leading up to kind of where you are now?
I continued the work I was doing, but with more resources, as well as some studio time, which was crucial to finishing things. I don't usually like to make it all about money, but trying to have a career in the arts is very expensive. It's not like you can just walk into a studio and show up and they're like, oh, you're cool. Yeah, use a studio. Everything costs money. So I didn't have the resources. I was just stretching to make ends meet. So I took the money, and a lot of it went to gear, but some of it went to studio time. And I got to work finishing an EP called Pink. I put it out and it started to gain traction online, on the DSPs like Spotify and Apple a little bit, and some blogs. Labels started getting interested, and publishers. And so I started taking a lot of meetings. First, we added a lawyer to the team who I still work with to this day. Then we added a second manager, again, who I still work with. I keep a very small circle and it doesn't change that much. And then we, took all of the meetings with labels and publishers to see if anybody would be a good fit. And sure enough, Epic really came in with, guns blazing, and really excited as they are to this day. So I feel very grateful to have found the people that I found, but I also would not say that it was an accident.
No doubt about that. It definitely wasn't. And being that kid where you're sitting there making music with your teacher in high school, you're thinking about the future, a lot of uncertainty there. How did it feel taking those meetings, especially the one with Epic?
It was certainly amazing. However, I would amend this point by saying there's a common trope or trap that exists that signing a deal means you did it, when in truth, signing a deal is when all of the work starts. It's obviously fantastic validation, and I was so grateful to even be considered. But at the same time, that's where the work begins. So it was both gratifying and a bit scary. I used to think that when you sign to a label, like all of the kind of guerrilla marketing, boots on the ground stuff you used to do, you just don't do anymore, right? You sign, so somebody else is going to do that stuff. Unfortunately, absolutely not. You're responsible for all that stuff plus new responsibilities that come up all the time. So it was certainly an incredible feeling, but it was also one that I planned. I don't want to sound too overconfident, but my goal right around the time of getting a grant was I want to do NYU as quickly as possible, sign either a publishing deal or a record deal, which will give me the income so I can move out to LA and do my thing. And here we are. So, like, feels good.
So what I want to know is you are a big proponent of the vision, which I am as well. You got to know where you're going. Where is it that you want to take Rents next? Obviously, you have achieved some awesome things, but I'm sure that you were not content with that. Where are you wanting to head?
Just getting started. Um, I've spent a lot of time recently thinking about these very questions very purposefully. And I even recently took a step back from creating the usual content I do every day to really understand why I'm doing this, for what reasons, what am I trying to accomplish? I think the pandemic was, it, you know, it necessitated that. There's a lot of people were home by themselves or not with their usual crowds for a long time. So a lot of thinking happened, which I think is good. But it was tough, but I answered those questions for myself better than I could have imagined, and I know where I want to take this, which is which is everywhere. Playing Lollapalooza this summer will be fantastic, but that should be the first of the next 300 festivals I play. We're looking at tour options for the fall and the spring, but I'm looking at tour options for the next 6 years. Every tour gets bigger and gets in front of more people, and with releasing music as well. Um, like I mentioned, over the past year, I also worked on music pretty much every single day, like without fail, and made a plethora of songs. But I didn't necessarily find that they converged anywhere, which meant I ended up with songs all over the place, different genres, different feelings, different moods, different tempos, whatever. Um, and so rather than trying to release to the world this like quilt of like crazy ideas all over the place, I reined it in, spent a lot of time with my own music as objectively as I could, and tried to understand what I wanted to offer. I'll spare you the technicalities, but it's a pop leaning sound for sure, but just with a cohesive feel, taking from past Rent songs what I love and combining it with what I've learned and putting those two together and giving them back to people, which I'm going to be doing with my next song, which just got approved to be released in the next couple weeks, which is fantastic.
That's super exciting. And what I really liked is the purposeful thinking that you did. Do you do that with the journal, or what's some advice you would offer as far as purposeful thinking?
Journal is huge. I had an interesting journey with it. I'm not the most patient. I'm a guy in the world, so I was I knew I needed to do some thinking, right? I knew things were not meshing and moving the way that I wanted them to, and so I needed to take a moment to figure out why. Um, at When I started that thinking, I wanted it to happen fast, as I want everything to happen fast. As soon as I had one idea, I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, I got it. I don't have to do any more thinking." Unfortunately, most of the time, that's not how it works, right? For a while, I was staring so intensely at the issues, and trying to figure out, okay, well, like, what is my brand? And like these songs that I don't really know. And it was stressing me out to the point where I took a step back in the opposite direction, let myself not worry for a little while, and then realized I had all of the answers that I needed the entire time. I was just psyching myself out. So my journal was huge for that. Like I mentioned, I've been seeing a therapist for about a year and a half. She is one of the greatest resources that I could possibly ask for, as well as leaning on the people I love and the people that love me, which is friends and family and my team, um, and Jill, my music teacher, and you name it, all the people that have gotten me here. Why wouldn't they be the ones to get me to the next place?
I love it. Well, Jackson, it's been phenomenal to have the opportunity to sit down with you again. On behalf of everyone here with Hunters Fund, we thank you for your time.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me. Yeah, before I go, just another thank you to you all. You changed lives, so I don't say that lightly or jovially. It's really amazing what you guys do, and I feel very grateful to have benefited, and you'll be seeing my face in your meetings for a long time.
Support from viewers like you make these grants possible. Support Hunters Fund.